I stock shelves overnight at a grocery store out in rural Tennessee. It's not exactly a glamorous job, but it pays better than you'd think. Plus, it's quiet. No customers to deal with after 10 p.m. Just me, the radio, and the rhythmic shh of stocking cans or boxed cereal. I took the gig about 3 months ago, after moving back to the area to take care of my mom. She's been having a hard time since Dad passed. The job market isn't great out here, so I was lucky to land anything. The store is called Brandley's Market. Small chain, family owned. It's one of those weird little places that feels stuck in time. The signs are all hand painted. Half the aisles creak like someone's walking behind you even when you're alone. Still, I figured stocking groceries was a solid way to keep my head down. But I was wrong. There are rules here, and they're not the kind that make any damn sense. The rules were handed to me on my first night by this lanky guy named Curtis. Stringy blonde hair, slow drawl, chewed sunflower seeds constantly. He didn't give me a proper orientation, just nodded, handed me a laminated card, and said, "Follow these and don't ask questions. You'll be fine." Here's what it said. Overnight shift. Rules, Brandley's Market, MA. Don't speak to the man in the meat aisle. If he's standing there when you pass, ignore him. Don't look directly at his hands. Canned goods must be rotated with the labels facing out. If a can label is missing, dispose of it in the red bin out back. Do not throw it in the store trash. Do not enter aisle 3 between 2:14 a.m. and 2:33 a.m. even if you hear something, especially if it sounds like a baby. If the lights flicker more than twice in a row, check the dairy case. If something is missing, leave it missing. Between 4:00 a.m. and 4:09 a.m., you may see a woman in a floral dress in the freezer door reflection. Do not turn around, just keep stocking. If you finish your tasks early, stay busy anyway. They don't like it when you get bored. I laughed at first. "Is this like hazing?" I asked Curtis. He didn't smile. "Just follow the rules," he said, spitting sunflower husk onto the floor. "You'll be fine." That first night, nothing weird happened. I stopped chips, cleaned up a broken jar of pickles, and listened to old country songs on my earbuds. The store was quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I stayed away from aisle 3 just to be safe, but it wasn't because I was scared. More like I didn't want to give Curtis the satisfaction if he was watching me on the security feed. By 5:55 a.m., I was done and waiting by the clock-out machine, sipping a cold Coke and trying not to nod off. Easy shift, nothing to worry about. But then came night 2. It was 2:20 a.m. I'd just finished restocking paper towels in the back of the store and figured I'd cut through aisle 3 to save time. I hesitated. That stupid rule floated back up in my brain. 2:14 to 2:33. That was the warning window. I checked my watch, 2:20 on the dot, and I was already halfway down the aisle. I stopped walking. Suddenly the air felt different, heavy, damp, like the humidity before a thunderstorm. That's when I heard it, a soft, hiccuping cry, like a baby. But it didn't sound right. There was something off about the rhythm. Too regular, like someone trying to imitate the sound of crying, but they'd never actually heard a baby before. I stood still, didn't turn around, didn't breathe. The crying got louder, closer. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped, and everything felt normal again. I backed out of the aisle without turning, and hid in the back room for 20 minutes, pretending to rearrange mop buckets. After that, I followed every single rule like my life depended on it. Because maybe it did. Night 5 was the first time I saw him. The man in the meat aisle. It was about 3:30 a.m. I was restocking ground beef and hot dogs, and when I turned to grab more from the cart, he was just there, middle of the aisle, staring at the pork chops. Wearing a gray coat, hands jammed in his pockets, I froze. Didn't say a word. Didn't even look at his hands. He didn't move. Just stood there, like he was deciding what to buy, but he never touched anything. I backed away slowly, cart creaking behind me. When I turned the corner, I swear I heard him sniff, like he was trying to catch my scent. I didn't go back to the meat aisle that night. The next morning, I asked Curtis about it. Tried to laugh it off, like I wasn't freaked out of my mind. Do you ever see that guy in the meat aisle? Curtis just stared at me. No smile, no sunflower seeds. You look him in the eyes? No, he nodded. Good. Then he ain't interested in you. I didn't ask what happens if he is. Something told me I wouldn't want to know. I didn't sleep much after that 5th shift. Not because I was scared, necessarily, at least that's what I told myself. But every time I closed my eyes, I'd see that man again. Not his face, just his silhouette, standing there under the buzzing meat cooler lights. And his hands, jammed in his coat pockets. Or were they? That's the thing, I never saw his hands, but my brain kept trying to picture them anyway. Curtis never brought it up again. Just handed me the keys, nodded toward the storage room and said, "Night shift's yours. I'll be in back if you need anything." We never talked about the rules unless we had to. By week 2, I'd started to learn the little signs. The stuff not written down. For example, when the lights flicker, it's not always the dairy case. Sometimes it's the bread aisle, but only when it's raining outside. Sometimes a cart will roll on its own across the linoleum, but if it stops in front of aisle 3, you don't move it. You just leave it there until morning. And every now and then, you'll hear someone call your name from the intercom system, even though no one's in the booth. The first time it happened, it was maybe 1:45 a.m. I was pulling a pallet of ramen noodles off the truck when I heard it. Clear as day. Evan, front desk. Evan to the front desk. I froze. That's my name. But no one's supposed to be on that intercom, not during overnight. I crept up front, scanning the registers. Empty. The mic was still hanging off the counter, like nobody had touched it in hours. I went back to work and tried to forget about it, but then it happened again. Next night, same voice, only this time it said something different. "Evan, someone's waiting for you in the freezer." I didn't go near the freezer that night. Didn't even stock the frozen pizzas. The woman in the floral dress showed up on my 10th shift. I didn't notice her at first. I was kneeling in front of the ice cream case, organizing tubs of Neapolitan, when I caught movement in the reflection of the glass. Not behind me, in the door itself. There she was, mid-40s maybe, pale, wet hair clinging to her face, like she just climbed out of a pond. Floral print dress, torn sleeve, one shoe. She didn't move. Just stood behind me, head tilted slightly, like she was waiting. I remembered the rule. Between 4 o'clock and 4:09, you may see a woman in a floral dress in the freezer door reflection. Do not turn around, just keep stalking. I checked my watch, 4:05 a.m. I stayed perfectly still. My hands moved automatically, grabbing a tub, sliding it into place. My reflection looked like a stranger. Pale, tense, not blinking. The woman didn't go away, but she didn't move either. The second the clock hit 4:10, she vanished from the reflection. Just gone. I stood up slowly, spine aching, and only then did I hear it. A single tap, tap, tap from inside the freezer, like a knuckle against glass. That morning, as I clocked out, Curtis stopped me at the exit. He didn't say anything at first, just studied my face. "You saw her?" he said finally. I nodded. He looked down, spit a sunflower seed and muttered, "Good, means she noticed you." That was the first time I truly felt cold. There was something else, something I hadn't told Curtis, something I couldn't tell anyone. It happened around night 11. I was working in the soda aisle, stocking 12 packs of Mountain Dew and trying not to drop one on my foot. The store was quiet. Too quiet. And then I heard the crying again, from aisle 3. I checked my watch. 2:22. Dead center of the danger zone. This time, the sound wasn't coming from the aisle. It was behind the shelf. Like there was space back there, hollow. And the crying, it wasn't just a baby. It was words, half-formed, muffled. It was like something was trying to speak. Ha. It was saying my name. My knees locked. I backed away slowly and headed to the bathroom. Locked myself in a stall. I didn't go near aisle 3 for the rest of the week. 2 days later, Curtis stopped showing up. Just vanished. Didn't clock in, didn't call. I asked one of the day managers, a guy named Todd, what happened. Curtis, he said, scratching his neck. Huh. I thought he quit months ago. I blinked. No. I worked with him 2 days ago. Todd just shrugged. You must be thinking of someone else. Nobody named Curtis is on payroll. He walked off, humming to himself. That night, I found Curtis's sunflower seed bag still in the back room. And something else, too. A new laminated card. Same font, same formatting. But the rules were different, and way more specific. Address marked overnight. Rules, Branley's Market, midnight to 6 a.m. If Curtis disappears, don't go looking for him. Don't mention his name to the others. If someone asks who trained you, say Todd. If the woman in the floral dress begins to smile, you are in danger. Drop what you're doing and walk backward to the front exit. Do not turn around. The intercom voice will begin to lie. Trust only your eyes, not your ears. Not even when it sounds like your mother. If you begin to feel like you're being watched from the mirrors, you are. I don't know who added the new rules. I don't know what happened to Curtis. But I do know this. Whatever lives in Branley's Market. It's getting bolder. It started snowing the night I saw the woman smile. I remember because the flakes were too big, like tufts of ash swirling under the parking lot lights. It wasn't forecasted either. The forecast said clear skies all night. I'd just finished stocking the bulk rice bags when I felt it. That pressure. Like something was watching me from the end of the aisle. I turned my head slowly toward the freezer section. And there she was again. Mid-aisle. Just standing there. Hair limp and wet. One bare foot. But this time, her lips had curled back just a little. Not a grin. Something worse. Recognition. Like she knew me now. Like she was glad to see me again. I didn't follow Rule 8 exactly. I didn't drop everything or walk backward. I ran. Straight to the front. I didn't turn around, not once. Even when I heard her behind me, the faint slap of a bare foot against tile. Even when the store lights began to buzz and dim. Even when the intercom crackled to life and whispered, "Where are you going, Evan?" I waited outside in the freezing cold for 10 minutes, watching the automatic doors. Nothing followed me. Not that I could see. But when I stepped back inside to finish the shift, a strange smell hit me right away. Rotten lilies. And all the freezers along the back wall were fogged up. From the inside. Todd started asking questions the next morning. "You okay, man? You've been looking pretty rough." I nodded, eyes sunken from another sleepless day. "Yeah, just adjusting to night shift still." He chewed his lip and then asked, "Hey, did Curtis ever tell you about the mirror rule?" My blood ran cold. "Why?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Todd lowered his voice and leaned in a little. "There's this one mirror in the back corner near aisle 9, the one that lets you see around the shelves. Whatever you do, don't look into it past 5 o'clock. Not directly." I swallowed hard. "Why not?" He hesitated. "Because sometimes it doesn't show you." I tested that rule a few nights later. Not on purpose. I was just tired. eyes stinging, muscles weak. I forgot about the time and turned into aisle 9 right as the clock hit 5:02. There it was, the convex mirror bolted to the ceiling corner. I looked up and I saw myself. Only it wasn't. It looked like me, sure, but the reflection was smiling. That same slow, awful smile the woman in the floral dress had. It didn't blink. It just stared. I stepped forward, so did the reflection, but it moved half a beat too slow. I took a step back. It smiled wider. I backed away, pulse hammering in my ears, and didn't return to aisle 9 for the rest of the week. Rule 11 appeared a few days later, on a yellow sticky note inside my locker. Still typed, still laminated, still that familiar, oddly sterile font. But this time, it had a warning scribbled at the bottom, in Cortis's handwriting. If you see someone who looks like you, do not engage, do not speak, do not run. Stay still, close your eyes, count to 13, then walk away slowly, even if you hear your voice behind you. Curtis, don't trust the mirrors, or Todd. That last part, it broke me a little. I had trusted Todd, but when I tried to confront him the next day, he just smiled and said, "You must be tired again, Evan. Don't work so hard." Then he leaned in closer. "Maybe take a nap in the freezer sometime," and walked off, whistling some old country tune I didn't recognize. That night, the power went out for 5 minutes. Not the building, just the lights. Everything else stayed on, the fridges, the soft hum of the HVAC, but the lights? Gone. Pitch black. And in that darkness, I heard them. Footsteps that weren't mine, the squeak of a cart being pushed, and the unmistakable sound of a baby crying somewhere in aisle 3. I crouched down near the canned vegetables and stayed perfectly still. I felt something brush past my back. Cold, damp, and then a whisper. "You left the freezer open, even." The light snapped back on. Everything looked normal again. Except one thing. Every single freezer door was open. Wide open. Frost curling onto the floor like fog. I've worked 16 overnight shifts now, and I think I'm starting to lose time. Last night, I found an entire pallet of eggs stocked in the laundry aisle. The night before, the cereal boxes were stacked into a wall in front of the bathrooms. And I don't remember doing either. But someone does, 'cause now, the intercom says things like, "Good work on the display, Evan. They like what you're building. Don't stop now. The mornings are getting harder to wake up to now." I'm not sure why. It's not the lack of sleep. Well, not only that, but something in the air. The kind of stillness that hangs in the house, thick like fog, and no matter how loud the coffee pot gurgles, or how bright the daylight shines through the window, it's like the world's been holding its breath. But I have to go back, because I'm stuck. I don't know how long I've been working here. I don't know what time it is anymore. I don't know how much of this is really happening. But I've been counting, and there's always a pattern. Some part of me that knows what comes next. Some part that wants to ignore the sticky notes I keep finding hidden in my locker. But, well, I don't have that luxury anymore. I found Rule 12 tonight. It wasn't like the others. Not typed, not laminated. Just a scrap of paper, folded and jammed in between 2 bags of pretzels, wedged so far into the shelf that I had to pry it out with my fingers. If you hear the doors open at midnight, do not approach. They are not the front doors. They are not your responsibility. I was already exhausted, barely able to focus on the task at hand. But when I read that note, a cold shiver prickled my neck. Because I knew that door. The back door. The one by the receiving dock. The one I was told never to go near after closing time. It had a strange smell to it sometimes. Not bad, just off. The metal handle would be cool to the touch, and sometimes you'd hear a soft scraping noise when no one else was around, like something moving just behind the wall, or maybe someone. I'd never had the courage to open it, but tonight I knew it was too late to run. It's strange, isn't it? The way the store feels at night? The place that's full of bright lights and hustle in the daytime turns into something different as soon as the sun sinks. It's quieter. The cold air presses into the aisles like it's trying to fit the empty spaces between the rows of shelves. The lights flicker, not enough to notice, but enough to make the shadows feel like they're creeping just a little closer, and there's that hum. That strange, unrelenting hum of the freezers, the kind that lingers in your ears long after you leave. I was in aisle 8, stacking cans of beans when it happened. Sound. A faint creak, like a door slowly swinging open, carried through the air. I froze mid-mouth, my hand still gripping a can of black beans. The back door. I didn't move. Another creak. Then the distinct sound of footsteps. Not from the aisle behind me. Not from any of the store shelves. The footsteps came from the back, from the dock. I glanced toward the rear of the store. The shadows were long back there, swallowed by the dim light from the exit sign. I couldn't see anyone, but the footsteps were too real, too solid. I swallowed hard, mind racing through the rules. Rule 12. The smell hit me next. It wasn't the rotten lilies this time. It was a sharp, acrid odor, like burnt plastic, and something sweetly metallic, like copper. The kind of smell that makes your throat tighten. I tried to turn my head away, but I couldn't stop myself. My legs moved on their own, toward the back door. No, 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 don't go near it. But my hand was already reaching for the cold metal handle. I stopped just short of grabbing it, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I heard a voice. Low, hoarse, familiar. Evan, I told you not to touch it. I spun around. It was Curtis, standing just past the freezer aisle. He was leaning against the shelf like he'd been there the whole time, his eyes wide open but glazed over, like he was too aware of everything. He didn't move. You're too close to it, Curtis said, voice trembling. The rules? You're breaking them? I stepped back instinctively, my hand still frozen near the door. What happens if I open it? I asked. Curtis's face twisted in something I couldn't read. Nothing good. That's what happens. They never go away. I glanced back at the door. Breeze swirled through the air, and the door moved slightly, as if nudged from the other side. Not by a hand. By something else. Something that didn't belong here. Curtis stepped forward. No, it's not worth it, he said, his voice urgent. A little frantic. Trust me, you don't want to see what's waiting. And then, just as quickly as he had appeared, he turned and walked away. No explanation, no warning, just a hurried retreat into the aisles. I stood frozen. The back door loomed before me. The air felt thicker. I could hear the footsteps now. Real, loud footsteps. Coming closer. I had to make a choice. I turned away from the door, and I swear I heard it close, the creak, the click of the lock, like something or someone had been listening. The rest of the shift was a blur. I don't even remember the time slipping by. The aisles were stacked higher than usual, and the shelves shifted in places that didn't make sense. I tried to find Curtis again, but I couldn't. He was gone. At the end of the shift, I checked the store clock. 5:00 clock. I wasn't surprised. I left through the front door like normal, except the wind had shifted. The air was colder than it should have been, like the mountain breeze had slipped into the parking lot, and as I walked to my car, I heard something faint behind me. The sound of footsteps. But when I turned, no one was there. Just the long stretch of the empty parking lot. Just me. I knew I wasn't alone. That night, I found another sticky note in my locker. Rule 13, if you ever get too close to the back door, remember, it's never locked, but the person who opens it never leaves. The note was different. It didn't feel like it came from Curtis, but it felt like it came from someone else entirely. I didn't go back the next night. I couldn't. I spent the day trying to shake off the feeling that something was wrong. You know how it is when a thought gets under your skin, when it scratches at your brain, whispering in the back of your mind, no matter what you do to distract yourself. That's how I felt, like the door was calling me, like the rules were pressing down on me. But there was no way I was going back. I was done. I couldn't do this anymore. There was too much going on, too many things I didn't understand. I stared at the note in my locker for hours, unable to look away. Rule 13. If you ever get too close to the back door. That last part kept echoing in my mind. The person who opens it never leaves. What did that mean? Was someone trapped back there? Or was I supposed to stay away from it so I wouldn't get trapped myself? I couldn't get answers from anyone. The store was deserted most of the day, and when Curtis wasn't around, it felt like I was the only one who had ever worked here. I finally decided to sleep on it, hoping that the night would give me some perspective, that the fog would lift. But as night drew closer, I could feel it creeping in again. The pressure in the air. The static hum of the freezers felt louder in the quiet of my apartment. The darkness outside felt heavier, like it was swallowing everything whole. I was back at the store the next day. I had no choice. It was like the pull of the place was too strong. It felt like I was being led back in, no matter how many times I told myself to leave, to quit, to run. I showed up early, as usual, trying to convince myself I was just doing my job. I walked through the front doors, past the registers, past the empty aisles, and down to the back. I kept looking over my shoulder. For the first time in a while, I felt like I wasn't just alone in here. I wasn't alone at all. The store had an eerie, muted glow from the overhead lights, but the shadows still seemed to linger. They seemed to crawl along the walls, stretching and twisting just out of sight. I tried to focus on the task in front of me, restocking cans, sweeping up messes, checking the stockroom. But every time I passed the back door, I couldn't stop looking at it. It stood there, quiet, innocent. But I could hear it. I could feel it. I kept reminding myself of Rule 12. If you hear the doors open at midnight, do not approach. They are not the front doors. They are not your responsibility. But what if I heard it during the day? What if I snapped myself out of it. I was overthinking things. I had to get through the night. I glanced down the aisle to where the back door was. It was open. Just a crack. Not wide enough for anyone to walk through, but wide enough for me to see the dark outline of the hallway behind it. The receiving dock. The empty, cold space I'd never dared to cross. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was impossible. The door was supposed to stay locked, and yet there it was, swinging open. It wasn't even midnight yet. Something wasn't right. I walked toward it, my heart pounding louder with every step. It called to me, like the way the waves call to a sailor in a storm, pulling them under, dragging them away. I didn't even know what I was doing anymore. I had to know. I had to open the door, but as my hand touched the cold metal handle, something stopped me. The door slammed shut. Not from the outside. No, it wasn't the wind. It wasn't some freak gust that had forced it closed. It slammed. Hard, fast, and furious, like it was angry. I jumped back, heart racing, pulse erratic. I stared at the door, my breath shallow, my mind trying to catch up. The sound of it had rung out through the store like a gunshot, like something was in there with me. I took a step back, looking over my shoulder to make sure I wasn't being followed. And that's when I saw it, a figure standing at the end of the aisle. Tall, dark, looming. It didn't move. I couldn't even tell if it had a face, but I felt it. The figure stayed there, watching me, unblinking. And every second it stood there, the air around me grew colder, harsher, like the wind that cut through the mountains at night. I didn't move. I couldn't move. But then the figure spoke. It wasn't a voice, not really. It was more like a whisper inside my head. "You don't have much time left." I froze, all the blood draining from my face. The whisper echoed in my ears, crawling deep into my bones. I've been waiting. I didn't remember much after that. I must have blacked out, because the next thing I knew, I was standing in front of the back door, hands shaking, face wet with sweat. The store was quiet again. I was alone. I turned back, ready to walk out of the store and never return. But as I reached for the exit, something stopped me. I glanced over my shoulder. The figure was gone. But the door was open again, wider this time, wide enough for something to come through. I couldn't fight it anymore. I had to know. And so I took one step forward, and then another. But I heard the voice again, louder this time, sharp and full of hunger. "I told you, you're never leaving." The door slammed again, this time for good. I couldn't move. I was trapped. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen in front of that door. Time lost all meaning. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. I could still hear that voice, that whispering, crawling thing echoing inside my skull. "You're never leaving." The words were alive, twisting and turning inside my mind. They pulsed with a dark rhythm, like a heartbeat that wasn't my own. I turned around, expecting to find the store as I'd always known it. The aisles of food, the buzzing fluorescent lights, the hum of the refrigeration units. But that wasn't what I saw. The aisles were wrong. They weren't the same as before. The shelves, the products, they were all misaligned, as if they'd been put together in a way that didn't quite make sense. Cans of beans and pasta were piled high on the floor. Boxes of cereal were stacked upside down. And the worst part? The aisles seemed to stretch out longer than they should have, like the store had grown, had expanded, without me realizing. The walls felt far away now, and the ceilings seemed to hang lower, oppressive. It was as if the store had shifted. I could feel it. The pull. The store was alive, and it was pulling me deeper. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But my legs were frozen, my body refusing to cooperate. I was no longer in control. My mind screamed at me to stop, to go back to the door, to escape, but the voice wouldn't let me. It kept pushing me forward, urging me to stay. Stay and see what happens next. I closed my eyes, trying to block it out. But when I opened them again, there was something new. At the end of the aisle, standing in the flickering light, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure. It was there, standing like a shadow in the corner of my vision, watching me with eyes I couldn't see. The shape was human, but it felt wrong, like it had been twisted into something it shouldn't be. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. My gaze was drawn to it, like I was stuck in some kind of magnetic field. And then, for the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in the store anymore. There were others, shifting in the corners, standing between the aisles, watching me. Some were just shadows, too faint to make out, while others were more defined, like figures, though their features were always just out of reach. But I felt them. I felt their eyes boring into me. "Don't ignore us," the voice whispered again, but this time it wasn't in my head. It came from somewhere deeper in the store. "We've been waiting for you." The walls around me felt like they were vibrating, the sound of the voice reverberating in my bones. Every instinct I had screamed at me to leave, to run, but my legs were like stone. I couldn't move. I didn't even know what I was supposed to do anymore. And then, as if the store itself had had enough of my indecision, the floor beneath me started to shift. Slowly at first, but then it grew faster, jerking like the floorboards were breathing. I felt a strange weight pulling at my feet, as if something was trying to drag me down into the floor itself. I stumbled back, panic rising in my chest, but I couldn't run. I couldn't scream. My mouth was dry, my legs shaking. I tried to move, but every step I took felt like I was sinking further into the ground. And that's when I heard it. A soft creak, followed by a low, guttural growl, like the sound of 1,000 doors creaking open at once. The back door. I didn't have to turn around to know that it was wide open now. I could feel it, feel the darkness crawling through the opening. The air grew colder, sharper, and the whispers, oh God, the whispers grew louder. Come to us, don't fight it, you'll never leave. I couldn't breathe. The darkness behind me felt like it was swallowing everything. The aisles, the shelves, the air. It was all being consumed by whatever lay beyond that door. I finally managed to move, one step, then another, and then the lights flickered, once, twice, and then they went out. The store was plunged into a thick, choking darkness. I couldn't see a thing. My heart hammered in my chest, the noise so loud it drowned out everything else. The whispers were still there, but now they were louder, angrier, as if they were coming from inside my head. I felt something touch my shoulder, cold like ice. I whipped around, but there was nothing there. Just the empty darkness and the whispers. I ran. I don't know how long I ran. I couldn't see a thing. Couldn't even hear my own footsteps over the cacophony of voices whispering my name, calling me back. But when I hit the front doors, when I slammed into them, I realized something. I couldn't get out. The doors didn't budge. They were locked. I pulled and pulled on the handle, but it was useless. The store had changed, and now I was trapped inside. I turned back, desperation and fear rising in my chest, but all I saw were the figures, the shadows, moving closer, shifting in the darkness. I could hear them now, walking, their feet dragging on the floor. They weren't human anymore. They were something else, something hungry. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, and that's when I saw it. The back door, wide open, and standing in the doorway, waiting, was the figure I'd seen before, the one that had whispered to me. But now it wasn't just a shadow, it was smiling. Its mouth stretched wide, far too wide. The smile was jagged, a grin that didn't belong to anything human. And behind it I saw only darkness. The darkness was all-consuming. And then, with a low growl, the figure took a step forward. And I knew I wasn't leaving.